Hello,
Hi,
Abe.
guys. Nice to
Hey.
meet you. Thank you all for being with me today.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
I had a chance to see The Ballad of Wallis Island at Sundance and really, really enjoyed it. I think it's a very funny film that's great to see with an audience. And I was very intrigued to learn that it's connected to a short that you guys made 17 years ago. And I'm curious how that originally came about and how we got to this feature film we have now.
So yeah, that short was one of a kind of as a little series of shorts that Tim and I made, which were all really based on, I guess, quite sketchy ideas about two people meeting for the first time, and thinking about a kind of funny situation that throws two people together and then forces them to stay together. And we were lucky enough that with this third film, I'd just been working with James on a commercial and showed him our earlier shorts, and he asked to direct the more recent one, and that was the one and only Herb Maguire played Wallis Island, which is the short film that the feature is based on. And yeah, in the intervening 18 odd years after making that short, we would kind of meet up and talk about how much we wanted to go back to it, how much we loved the characters, and also how we sort of really believed there was a bigger story in there. And then it was only really in around 2020 when Tim and I started going back to this script and going back to these ideas and the notes we've made all those years earlier that we hit on the idea of opening up the world of it and bringing in Nell and Herb having a former bandmate who was also his girlfriend, and you know, I guess introducing a whole new emotional side to the film, and the film not just being about wish fulfillment for this lottery winner, but being about people trying to get over something from the past, people trying to, you know, people who are kind of stuck in a kind of like holding pattern with their relationships or with how they see their life, and this experience on the island being a way for them to finally move on.
And if you play the lottery regularly,
No, I do not. I never really play it. We have Tim and I have a thing called Kentish Christmas every year, which is in Kentish Town in London. We'll meet up with some friends, and often we'll give each other scratch cards instead of presents because we'll sort of forget to have gotten a thing on the way. But that's about the only time I play the lottery, and even then, I've never really won anything.
I feel like we should have played the lottery with the lottery numbers
Oh,
a few
from the
times,
film.
yeah, from the film.
True.
That should be something. Just to,
Yeah,
you never know.
you never know. You never know. Yeah.
Tim, everything you say in the movie, I think is just so hilarious. And it's impressive also because the timing is enough that, you seem to know to wait for the audience to laugh, which is good because there definitely could drown out most of, your little quips. How
You
much
have
are you,
to you have to be aware of, that the film's going to play in theaters, and then
how much,
you have to factor that into your timing.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, we had a
How
laughter
much would
track
you
on
say
set
that
that we
you're like, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
no, sorry, I'm only being silly. I was saying we had a laughter track on set that we then turned off when we actually did the edit, but
You're
we
right,
didn't.
that's
We didn't.
very silly. Yeah,
Yeah, carry
yeah.
on.
Go on. Back to Abe.
I'm saying talking over each other is exactly what we said you're not doing in the movie, so that's good. But Tim and Tom, I know that you also wrote this film. How much are you like your own characters, and are there certain qualities that actually fit the other person better?
This is a great question. I'd like to distance myself publicly from my character. My character's an incredibly annoying buffoon. But having said that,
No, come on.
well, no,
Cool.
he definitely has his qualities. No, I think I guess I do sort of talk. This my guy is like a sort of tap which can't switch off, and I think I struggle slightly to switch mine off in real life, but not quite as bad as his. It's not mine's not quite as terminal a switched on tap. Um, but no, I think we sort of talk a fair amount of nonsense. Me and Tom and our friends. There is an element that you if you watched us for an hour and then watched the film, you could definitely say there's not as much distance as you'd like between me and Charles. But yeah, in terms of the Charles as a whole character, I love him because he does have that, but then he's a sort of fully formed human being in terms of he's got a past, he's got some stuff he's trying to deal with, and I think gradually, I think Herb writes him off, and I think an audience member might write him off in the first 10 minutes or underestimate exactly what he can bring to the table.
Mm.
Um, that doesn't answer your question per se, but that's my experience of playing him. Is there's a lot of me in there, but then you sort of there's light and shade in there as well. In terms of Tom, I mean, he can speak of it better than I can, but I think he's less like his character.
That's kind. I think there are times when I'm quite like Herb. I think I can be a bit steely and probably probably a bit self-involved. So I've definitely got it in my locker to be like Herb, but I hope that I'm a bit nicer and easier going than Herb. Yeah, I hope so.
You're quite serious about your craft, like in a really good way. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of I see that thoughtfulness around what you're doing, your output, is something that I see with him as a that part of you. And then Tim, yeah, probably quite a bit. Both of you, there's shades, isn't there? There's sort of elements of you both.
Yeah, but I think that's a big part of comedy, isn't it? Is that sort of, what they call, your clown, like finding the characters that do contain enough of you as a performer that you can inhabit them completely. I think there's a reason why a lot of comedians do gravitate towards similar types of characters, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to discover this, as I said, at Sundance, and it feels like a very, good fit for that festival. While I think it is something very unique, what are some other projects you think people might want to gravitate towards this if they've seen and liked before? It's a good hook for this film.
Do you mean other projects of ours?
No, for people who aren't familiar with your fantastic work, what's a
Ah,
great way in for them to say, this is something I should check out? I
well,
promise they'll be
yeah.
happy if they get there, but how would you get them there?
Without plugging Focus too much, who've been an amazing sort of partners. A lot of their output, I would say, is there's some good overlap with a lot of the films just historically that they've been a part of. I can think of the Alexander Payne work, is specifically something that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's those movies, isn't it? We were talking about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles the other night, and thinking about those movies that are funny, that have funny characters, but have a lot of heart, that really kind of that surprise you with the emotion, towards the end of the film. I think that those were the kind of films that I think we grew up loving and wanted to sort of emulate when we approached this. There's something kind of classic about that weirdly I don't think you see that much these days. Like that, I don't feel like those films are as widely made, but those are the kind of things that I love, where you feel like the characters are really real and there's some really funny dynamics at the heart of it, but then it really surprises you with how kind of moving it becomes.
And I'd say it's difficult to say that we've done it because it's our own movie. But when you watch like other classic British comedies, like if you do watch Four Weddings and a Funeral, by no means have we done that. But when you watch it, it's so funny and it's such a nice film, but also you do cry. And I think we've been quite surprised that a lot of the feedback is that people do cry in our movie. Weirdly, the characters are. I think the characters are pretty real, and so we sort of try and we're both Tom and I have done comedy for 20 years, so we try and bring as much comedy to the screen as possible, and then the challenge for us is to then tell a story which people can engage in, and that's where Griff can marshal all of that and pull it all together. That was certainly the aim, anyway.
yeah, just invest in your characters, isn't it? So there's a lot of like really good films out there that kind of are characters. I was thinking about Local Hero the other day as well, or some of the old Bill Forsyth, um, that kind of have a similar character first, I should say, comedy.
Mm.
Mm.
You feel like there's more to the story of Charles and Herb, or is this it? This is the grand finale.
Well, you know what? It's we always thought that we'd do it again when we made the short, and I kind of it definitely feels like this is a very kind of a film that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and it couldn't be more of a sort of striding off into the sunset ending, really. But at the same time, we love the characters, and obviously, like any like decent artist, we'll definitely run out of ideas. So I guess we'll come back to
We'll do like a charity tennis match or something like that.
it.
Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for people to get to see this film. Thank you guys so much. Really nice to revisit it.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.